things in the Torah and in the Haftarah and the Brit Hadashah, they're all connected. They all relay back and forth to one another. You see something in the Torah, you see it back in the Brit Hadashah. You see something in the New Testament, you see it back in the Torah. It's just a matter of God's word is God's word from the very beginning to the very end. And everything through here, through the Torah, is pointing to everything that he is and everything that he's going to do for his people, everything that he's going to do in our lives. And if Yeshua said, if you believe the things that Moses wrote, if you believe Moses, then you would believe the things that I'm telling you. So we need to learn how to reconcile these two things because they don't conflict. And so if Yeshua is saying the things that Moshe said, these are the things, I'm not telling you any different. They testified of me. And so if we're believing what Yeshua said as well, then Yeshua is not contradicting the Torah either. So what happens here is we get a lot of things as we read through the Word that we don't understand some things, and I think that's the problem. We don't understand some things. And it doesn't mean we are never going to understand it, although I do believe there are some things we may never comprehend this side of eternity, right? But at the same time, there are things that we just might not get yet. And so in those things, we need to be careful not to make strong determinations in doctrine based on what I understand, because let's face it, what I understand changes. Or at least it should. As we grow, as we study, and just day by day and year by year, we should not be at the same place spiritually that we were a year ago. We should be growing in the things that the Father has for us, right? And some of us have grown even this morning. That's a good thing. And so it's a day by day thing that we're coming into the presence of the Father and asking, Yahweh, I want you to reveal not just your word. It's not just about knowledge, guys. I want you to reveal you to me. And everything that was written for us in the Word is a revelation of the heart of Yahweh to us. And so when we look through things, we can see like shadows of the Messiah, shadows of the things that are to come, shadows of the things that he's doing. And we can look and find these things throughout the entirety of it. But one of the problems that we have when we're reading the Word is we tend to, pardon the way I say it, but we tend to just spiritualize everything. We forget that these are real stories with real people that really happened. And so we need to understand this in the natural and the physical world, but we also need to understand it in the spiritual realm. And then sometimes God's just trying to do like parables. You know, he's trying to teach us things through stories and teach us things. So we need to learn to discern when all these things are happening. Okay? So one of these things we're going to talk about Aharon and the role of the priest and the rod. We're going to talk about resurrection and tie that all in to Yeshua being our high priest, and with resurrection being the mark that Yahweh chose him to minister to his people and for us to be brought into the presence of the Father. Okay? So spoiler alert, that's where we're going. All right? Ready to jump into it? All right, here we go. Let's start off with this. So what was the significance of Aaron's rod? Exodus 4:2, we see Yahweh said to Moshe, so what's in your hand? And he said, a rod. Remember the whole burning bush incident, guys? So Moshe goes, he turns aside to see there's this fire, there's this bush, and the fire is burning, but the bush is not being consumed. Let me go figure out what's going on, right? And so he approaches, and Yahweh's saying, I'm choosing you. I want you to go to the people, and they have this argument back and forth, right? They're not even really negotiating. Moshe is trying to argue with Yahweh. How many of us do the same? Be honest, right? We're like, Yahweh's like, I want you to do this. And you're like, yeah, but no, I want you to do this. And as you read through the story, you kind of hear the back and forth and a little bit of how the tone goes, right? You know, even when Moshe's like, but I can't do it. I can't speak. I can't talk. And God's like, your brother Aaron's already on his way to you. Look, there he is. He's coming right now. What's your excuse now, Moses? Like he's like step by step taking away our excuses, right? And so what happens here, he's arguing, and he says, okay, well, you want signs, you want things. Okay, so what's that in your hand? He says, a rod. So what's the deal with the rod? Okay, Exodus 4:15 to 17. So it says, talking of Aaron, so you shall speak to him and put words in his mouth, and I will be with your mouth and with his mouth, and I will teach you what you shall do. And he shall be your spokesman to the people. Who's he? Aaron will be the spokesman to the people. And to the spokesman to the people, and he shall be to you instead of a mouth, and you shall be to him instead of God, and you shall take this rod in your hand where you will do the signs. Initially, what's happening is Moshe is complaining. to God, and he's like, I don't have these things, and I'm not a man of words. Literally, it's what he says. Did he stutter? Did he not know the language? Whatever. I don't know. We're not specifically told. However, he said, I'm not a man of words. That's literally in the Hebrew, that's what he said. I'm not a man of words. Interesting how when we get to the book of Deuteronomy, it starts off with Ele Habarim. These are the words of Moshe. What God can do, right? So here he says, I'm not a man of words. And he says, okay, fine. Look, your brother Aaron is going to come to you. Look, he's already on the way. He's coming. See, there he is. Now, I'm going to put my words in your mouth. You're going to put words in his mouth, and he's going to tell the people. One of the things we read when they go into Pharaoh, like Moses goes before Pharaoh and says, let my people go. You know, most of the time, Aaron's the one who did the talking in front. Not all the time, but most of the time. One of those little things that we miss in the story. Okay? So what happens here? What's the significance? Exodus 7:9. When Pharaoh shall speak to you, saying, show a miracle for you, then you say to who? Aaron, take your rod. So again, this was the rod that was given to Aaron. Take your rod and cast it before Pharaoh, and it shall become a serpent. So what was the rod that was used for? I mean, let's face it. You're out in the wilderness, you're out in the desert. Just about everyone's going to have a rod. What for? Well, how about just having a walking stick? Pretty rough terrain out there. Have a walking stick. Plus, not to mention, it could be a matter of protection, safety. And if you have a shepherd's rod, you know how it's bent on the one end, that's two-pronged, right? One to help grab something and pull it closer or hold something back, and the other end for protection to help push something away, right? So again, it's a matter of safety, matter of protection, matter of all these things working together. But what happens? What was the rod used for, though? The rod was used to demonstrate the power, the signs of Yahweh. Because he says, take this rod and then throw it down. This sign will be cast down, and it will become a serpent. And then Pharaoh's servants, they did the same thing, but Aaron's rod swallowed up the others. Okay? And then to show who Yahweh chose to handle the task at hand. The rod was used to show who was ministering or working or observing, whatever, on behalf of Yahweh. Okay? Next, it was demonstrated to all Israel after the incident of Korah. Remember the incident of Korah? We'll be reading about it next week in the Torah portion. Right? So what's going on with the incident of Korah? What happens here? Well, what was the deal? Let's go back and take a quick look at it. Number 16, 16 verse 1, it says, now Korah, the son of Izhar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, and the sons of Reuven, Dathan and Aharon, the sons of Eliab, and the son of Pelech. So it says, and Korah took men, and he took these men, right? Well, you know, it doesn't really read that way in the Torah. Excuse me, just a second. It doesn't really read that way in the Torah. It reads, Vayechach Korah. It reads, and took Korah, and then it names the men, but it doesn't really specify what he took. Okay, so it's more like implied. You kind of have to fill it in. It's kind of vague. But it says what he took. Vayechach Korah, then bin Yitzhar. So it kind of really reads that he took these men. And then if you see, okay, there was 250 men that were given here, but there are two main different groups. Right? One, it says they took Korah, the son of Yitzhar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi. So Korah was from what tribe? Levite. He was from the tribe of Levi. He was a Levite. Right? So then it says he took these men, Dathan and Aharon, sons of Eliab, and On, the son of Peleth, who were from the tribe of Reuven. So he's got, first off here, his family from the tribes of Levi and a couple leaders from the tribe of Reuven. What's the significance of combining these two groups and then getting 250 men from the whole congregation, but these men specifically leading the charge? He was trying to forge a two-pronged accusation against Moshe and Aharon. What's going on here is this. First off, the first accusation was against Moshe and his leadership. Okay, Dathan and Aharon, they had different claims than the other 250. The claims they had here is Moses', let's just call them political promises. We're going to go to a land that is flowing with milk and honey, but yet all we've seen so far is the wilderness. Right? This is all we've seen. This is all we've known. Where's this land you're telling us about, Moses? What's going on? Are we going there or not? Right? And why would they have a leg to stand on? They're from the tribe of Reuven, who was the firstborn, right? So who was supposed to be the kinsman redeemer for the people, for the family. Who was supposed to be the ones leading the charge? It was the firstborn. And when the time come for these blessings, Reuben was passed over. So let's just put it kind of lightly out there. Reuben was kind of discontent that anybody else was doing this. Felt it was his job. So here, they're like, Moses, you told us we were going to be out here. We don't have it. What are you doing to us? You promised us this. We don't see it. What's going on, right? So they've got this argument against him. But then the argument also against Aaron and his service. Against Moses and against Aaron. Not just against Moses, not just against Aaron, but we're hitting both of them. Okay? What was the charge against that? The charge against Aaron, well, don't you know, all Israel is holy. So why is Aaron the one who gets to offer incense and go into the most holy? Why is Aaron the one that gets to do that? Because don't you know the entire congregation is holy? And one of the things that we learn, it's not about, yes, the entire congregation is holy. Are they? Yes, absolutely, because that's what Yahweh said. But they all had different functions. They were all set apart, but they all had different roles within the body. See? So how these things fell, which we'll get to in a minute. So what was going on here? Well, first off, again, Aaron was the one who was supposed to go in to burn the incense. I'll make a note of that by saying, Exodus 30, verse 7 through 9, Yahweh said, Aaron will go and burn the incense every morning. When he attends to the lamps, he is to burn it. Also, when Aaron keeps the lamps lit at dusk, he must burn it and then be incense continually before Adonai throughout your generations. You must not offer unauthorized incense on it, nor any burnt offering or grain offering be there, nor should you pour any drink offering on there. Now, if anyone other than the high priest offered incense, that would still be unauthorized incense, even if it was the right incense. Follow me? Because Aaron was the one who was supposed to offer it. Okay? So, this is the way things had to be. Now, how could Korah take 250 men? Could he, like, each one by one, grab them by the hand, gather them all around, and all... How did Korah take 250 men? I believe this is something that elapsed over time. I believe this is something that just happened over one night. I believe it's something that elapsed over time. I'm going to say Korah was probably a very good politician, very good at manipulating the circumstances and the people and gathering people in to gather in. You notice what he was saying is, Moses and Aaron, we don't need you. We don't need these things. These people, they want to live for themselves under my leadership, of course. So he was trying to set things up for a coup, if you will. But what was happening here is that the state of the people was in a bad situation. The incidents that we read for Korah is after the spies came back. So essentially, this was after Yahweh had told the people, you're not going into the land right now because of your unfaithfulness, because of your unbelief. You're not going into the land. I'm going to use the next generation. So do you think the hearts of the people were joyful about this? No. So do you think that someone arose in their midst to speak to their discontentment, to gather people together to lead this direction? Makes sense, doesn't it? What's happening on here? What do we read about? What does the scripture have to say about that? Matthew 24, 10 through 12. Because at that time, many will be trapped into betraying and hating each other. Many false prophets will appear and fool many people, and many people's love will grow cold because of increased distance from the Torah. What do we read here? People become offended, and because of the offense, they betray one another. And you ever notice when you're really offended with someone or really upset with someone, it seems like there's always someone around who comes to speak to that offense. Right? Not coming to help pray with you or not coming to help lift you up or help resolve a situation or whatever. They always kind of come to feed the offense, not try to help mend it. They try to help bring things together and bring to a place of unity. Always further division, always further things, right? And then, so that's what happens. So as soon as you get that, then you get people rising up to speak to that. Then what happens? People get disheartened because of all these things. Consider 10 people, the report of 10 people disheartened the entire nation about the goodness of the land. 10 people. Millions of people. 10. Doesn't take much, does it? So here, they go in. So why? Because the people were already disheartened, already offended, because of what Yahweh had told them. I mean, here you go, you're coming out of Egypt, I'm going to take you to this land, but you're like constantly fighting it, constantly saying, you know, what's going on? God, we're supposed to be in this land by now, what's happening? These people are trying to attack us, what's going on? We're not there yet? Manna again? Really? I mean, Instead of being joyful and following Yahweh and where they're at, they're constantly arguing and bickering and complaining. And so where's your focus at? And so when Yahweh is saying, guys, if you're not going to listen to my voice, if you're not going to do this, if you're just bent on dying in the wilderness, then fine, let's get it over with. I'm going to use the next generation. And literally, guys, that's what he says. He says that what you said, I will do to you, and I will use the next generation. Okay? So what happens here? Notice the progression here. Matthew 24, 10 to 12 starts with pride in your heart, which gets wounded, and that leads to offense. Offense leads to resentment, which leads to bitterness. Bitterness leads to anger and separation. And then that leads to uprising, removal of your covering. Then that leads to accusation. Then that leads to rebellion against Yahweh. Consider that in the incident that happened with Korah and what Yahweh really wanted to do with the people, right? Moses and Aaron were the ones. Now, were Moses and Aaron trying to do their own thing? No. See, they were following Yahweh. You know, when the cloud got up and the cloud moved, what happened? Moses and Aaron got up and they followed them, and the people followed them as well. They weren't following Moses and Aaron. They're following Yahweh. Moses and Aaron were the ones who would try to gather the people around for the appropriate times and seasons and to teach them what Yahweh is saying, right? Because don't forget, when Yahweh spoke to all the people, to the entire nation of Israel, Israel said, we don't want to hear it. They backed off. And they said, Moses, you go find out what God says. And then you tell us that. And I think that's part of the problem. See, initially, yes, Yahweh wanted for all of us to hear his voice. When we did, that we don't want it. Let's let Moses tell us. And then we have accusations against Moses because Moses is just a man. How do we know it's really what God said? You can't have it both ways. However, we can thank Yahweh that he does give us his Holy Spirit to teach us his ways, and we can hear his voice. But that doesn't mean that because now we hear the voice of Yahweh, now we hear the Holy Spirit, we can do this, we can discern these things, that we don't need what we already have been given. Okay? We've got to discern these things. Now what happens here? Okay. With all that said, could offense in the community of Yahweh, could offense be a lead-in for Korah's rebellion? I think so. I don't think this was the only issue. Okay? Consider as well, Korah was a Levite. In the tribe of the family, he was a Kohathite. The Kohathites were the ones who were supposed to carry the holy implements. These are the guys who carried the ark. These are the guys who did these. I mean, this was amazing things, right? They didn't want that. They wanted Aaron's job. See? Again, it's a matter of, do we figure what God has given us as a blessing and the gifts that he has given us as blessing, or do we want somebody else's? See? We need to learn to function as the body that's been given to us. And even then, he was, a cousin to Moses. So when the time came, was he chosen for leadership? Was he chosen as a high priest? Was he chosen as these things? No. So again, it's another area, another issue of offense, right? And kind of the idea, I mean, it's kind of like implied. Moses, we don't need to listen to you. You're trying to set up some kind of empire for yourself. I mean, your brother's your prophet, the one who's telling us all these things and interceding and doing all these things. Your sister's the prophetess. You're just trying to keep it in the family. Here's the thing, guys. They were all Levites. They were all supposed to be the ones to minister to Yahweh and to minister to the people. They were all Levites. They were all ones who were supposed to be doing these things. But when you're short-sighted, and all you can see is this, you can't see what Yahweh's trying to do in a bigger picture. So the offense that was here tried to lead in Korah's rebellion. Consider these things. What was the state of the nation? You've seen like a State of a Union address kind of a thing. What was the state of the nation right here? Well, let's look at it. When we came into the wilderness, what'd they say? We're going to die out here. There's no water. We're going to die out here. There's no meat to eat. You want to guess? We're going to die out here. There's giants in the land. We're going to die out here. Kind of sounds like one of those psalms, right? Thanks to the Lord for he is good, his love endures forever, right? Instead of that, Israel's going, we're going to die out here. You know? Where's your focus? You know, are we focusing on the things that Yahweh wants us to focus on, or are we changing these things, right? There's giants. We're going to die out here. We can't go into the promise. We're going to die out here. Okay, you know what? We've sinned. Now we're going to go. Oops, God said no. It's too late. Oh, well, I guess we're going to die out here. All this coming into a place, now it's like we just need new leaders. We just need someone who's going to take us back to Egypt. Because it was better in Egypt. I mean, there we had, fish and leeks and garlic, and it was amazing. The food was so good, but they were killing your kids. That's okay, right? Where was their focus? Just to get me out of the situation I'm in right now, which, by the way, was their own choosing. If they had heard the voice of God, listened to him, they wouldn't be in that same situation. It's a matter of the state of mind that they were in. So what happens? People were offended by their circumstances. Okay? The result was that they didn't hold on to the truth that they were given because they were offended. So they would rather hold on to the slanderous report of the land than the promise that God gave them. And so the people were turned over to their own hearts. Follow after, instead of, because it's like they refuse to follow God, and they refuse to do this, then Yahweh says, okay, well, you can have what you want. And then I'll use the next guy. So the dispute of Korah with his followers, what was happening here? Each faction of the rebellion had its own agenda. They were united only in their opposition to Moses. They each had their own plans. The only thing that united them, let's put it this way. How many of you have ever heard the phrase, the enemy of my enemy is my friend? Yeah, I hate that. For more than one reason. One reason being, okay, so the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So you join together to fight your enemy. Now your enemy is gone. Now you guys are still enemies. It doesn't work that way. Instead of uniting for common causes and common goals and common purposes for good, well, we both hate each other, but we hate him more. See, so we're uniting for that. And it's not just about that we need to be people united, but what are we united in? We're united to follow Yahweh, and we may have some differences in there, some issues there, but are we united for Yahweh? We're going to follow him. And when there's problems, we'll try to work it out. We're going to follow him. That's what we need to look at. So what's the idea here with Korah and these rebellion, these things that are going on? Since each individual is holy, we have no need for anyone else. Since God has said that I'm holy, I don't need anybody else. Is that the way that Scripture tells us we need to be? No, it says we need people. We need to have others around us to help us, encourage us, help lift us up, and to be encouraged by. It's not just about what I can get, it's about what I can give too. So it's all about relationships and helping each other out, being part of a body as a whole. Okay, examples so we don't need a priest, Aaron. We don't need a prophet or a teacher, Moses, because Moses was supposed to get the words of Yahweh and teach the people the Torah, right? And then he was also to teach it to the Levites, and the Levites were also to teach it to the people. But how do we see Yahweh working in his people? Yeah, he has prophets, teachers, shepherds, priests, all of these people. But guys, even Yeshua came and he taught the people. Even Yeshua came and he's pictures of our high priest. I mean, all these things we see, there's examples for it. The problem we have here today is we think just because someone has some kind of a role like this, that, somebody thinks that we're better than somebody else, and that's never the case, guys. It's not that at all. No matter if we all have different roles and different functions within the body, and the body works best when we're all in our roles and functions, whatever they are. There are things you're supposed to do, I can't. There are things I'm supposed to do, you can't. But when we all work together, that's when it's a glorious thing. That's when the body shows the presence of the Father. That's where his heart is revealed, not just to us, but to a people out there. So this is what's going on here. Does being called a holy people relieve you of responsibility and authority? Not at all. Actually, it doesn't relieve you of authority. It makes you more accountable to it. Even Yeshua and the things that he said, Yeshua says, so you've heard it said, but I tell you, he wasn't saying that the things were already said were bad. He was just, instead of just causing it to be an outward action, he was actually holding their reasons and their hearts accountable to it. So he was actually making it a little more intense, right? We're all part of a body, but we all have our own roles and functions. Romans 12:4 and 5 says, "For just as we have many parts in one body, and all the parts do not have the same function, so we are many, are one body in the Messiah, and everyone parts of one another." We say that, yes, we follow Yahweh and we love Him, then we need to say there's also people that is our family as well. And what do we read? And what did John say? How can you say you love Yahweh who you haven't seen if you hate your brother who you have? Okay, so again, we need to learn to be these parts of the body and work together in the plans that Yahweh has given to us. 1 Corinthians 12:11 and 12. Yeah, we're still talking about Aaron's rod, by the way. Because one of these reasons for Aaron's rod was to help gather and bring the people together in a place of unity. 1 Corinthians 12:11 and 12. The one and the same Ruach activates all these things, distributing to each person individually as he wills. All these gifts that Yahweh gives us, he says it's the same Ruach that activates all these things and distributes all of these gifts. But the thing we need to pay attention to is it says that God gives them individually as he wills. In other words, all the gifts are given by Yahweh, but he gives them to who he will, when he will, why he will, how he will. Okay? Verse 12, just as the body is one and has many parts, and all parts of the body, though many are one body, so is the Messiah. Okay, so what happened to Korach and all those who followed him? It ended good for them, right? Not at all. What happened to them? So, Numbers 16:8-11. So Moses says to Korah, "Hear now, sons of Levi." Notice how he is addressing them. Sons of Levi. They were Levites. First off, he's acknowledging their position. He's holding them, reminding them, and holding them accountable to who they are. You sons of Levi. In other words, you have a job. You have a position. You have responsibilities that you're held accountable to, and you're saying you don't want them? Right? Verse 9. Is it too small a thing that the God of Israel has separated you from the congregation of Israel to bring you near to himself? To do service in the tabernacle of the Lord and to stand before the congregation to minister to them? I mean, that's quite an honor, isn't it? Verse 10, and that he has brought you near to him and all your brothers, the sons of Levi, with you, and would you would seek the priesthood also? Therefore, it is against Yahweh that you and all your company have gathered together. What is Aaron that you grumble against him? Verse 16, and Moses said to Korah, be present, you and all your company, before Yahweh, you and they and Aaron tomorrow, and let every one of you take his censer and put incense on it, and every one of you bring before Yahweh his censer, 250 censers, you also and Aaron, each his censer. So every man took his censer, and they put fire in them, and they laid incense on them, and they stood at the entrance of the tent of meeting with Moses and Aaron. I'm going to stop here for a second. I want to talk really quick about the intense pride in this congregation right here. There's 250 guys that are gathered in together. Well, how can you tell that just from this? Because who was supposed to burn incense? The one that God chose. The one that God already said, right? But here, now they're looking at an issue of only one can do it. Here you got Korah, Dathan, and Aharon, and these 250 guys, and Moses says to all of them, every one of you go get your censer, and tomorrow come out here, we'll put incense in it, and we'll see who God chose. Every single one of them had to have looked around at all the other ones and said, I guess I'll be the only one left standing. Because they all knew what that meant. Now, see, at that point, it no longer became, we're following Korah. At that point, each one of them in their own heart said, yeah, that's going to be me. See what happened there? So what ended up happening? 19. So then Korah assembled all the congregation against them at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and the glory of Yahweh appeared to all the congregation. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and Aharon, saying, separate yourselves from among this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment. Kind of interesting how many people so just casually say we want the glory of God in our midst. Don't say it unless you mean it. Here the glory of God appeared, the glory of God came and appeared to the entire assembly and said, judgment is coming with it. What happened? Number 1632. The earth opened its mouth and swallowed up the Dathan and Abiram and all those people, others who stood, the other families who stood against them, and it swallowed them up with all their households, and the people who had sided with Korach and everything they owned. And fire came out from Adonai and destroyed the 250 men who offered the incense. Fire came out from before the Lord, which means it came out from the holy place. Guys, what fire is in the holy place? Menorah. Picture, if you will, fire from the menorah shot out through those doors, consumed the 250 men. Came out from before the Lord and consumed them. All right. Now that this happens, now that the Korah went and that all these things went and all the people saw it, right? They knew what happened. So now all the people rested in the fact Yahweh appointed Moses and Aaron. Moses, Aaron, we've seen this with our own eyes. We understand. We get it now. You tell us what God said and we'll follow you, right? Wrong. What happens next? Number 1641. The very next day, I love how the scripture kind of puts that. The very next day, the whole community of the people of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron. You have killed God's people. Really? Really? You've killed God's people. Korah and people in the rebellion, you've killed God's people. Talk about a people with no discernment, right? You've killed God's people. And however, as the community was assembling against Moses and Aaron, guys, think about this. You just saw this yesterday. As all the people were assembling against Moses and Aaron, the fire came out and consumed it. So, well, it didn't work yesterday. Maybe it'll work today. I don't think so. They're coming in, they're assembling against them. What happens? Moses and Aaron, they looked in the direction of the tent of meeting, and they saw the cloud glory cover it, and the glory of Adonai appear. And you know Moses and Aaron was thinking, oh, no, not again. I said, this just happened yesterday. Right? Number 17, 1 through 5. Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel, take every one of them a rod, according to the house of their fathers. Of all their princes, according to the house of their fathers, 12 rods. And write every man's name upon his rod. And you shall write Aaron's name upon the rod of Levi. And one rod shall be for the head of the house of their fathers. So what was he supposed to do? Take 12 rods, and each tribe had one leader, and then that leader's name was written on that one rod for each tribe. For the tribe of Levi, Aaron was written on. Okay? Verse 4. And you shall lay them in the tabernacle of the congregation before the testimony, where I will meet with you. And it shall come to pass that the man's rod whom I shall choose shall blossom, and I will make to cease from me the murmurings of the children of Israel, whereby they murmur against you. So, Aaron's rod, what's the deal? This was a test for who the Father chose as his high priest. Now that he can choose any tribe. He can choose one leader for each tribe. He's got a choice, 12. Any one of these, he's going to choose. He's going to say, this is the one that I have chosen. Okay? 12 rods are taken. The name of each leader is put on it, and it's put before the Lord. That when it's the phrase before the Lord means in the holy place. When the tabernacle was being constructed, everything in the holy place's testimony is before the Lord. So when you read the phrase before the Lord, think in the holy place. So it was there. And what happened with Aaron's rod? Aaron's rod, it flowered, it budded, and it had fruit, right? The almonds. So it had the buds, it had the flowers, and it had the fruit on it overnight, right? Now, you guys consider this for a minute. You get like a big rod. You don't want one that's real green, do you? It's going to move, it's going to twist, it's not going to be very stable. You let it dry out, you use that. Well, so this thing was dead. It was a dead piece of wood, dead. It came to life, produced the flowers, and it had fruit. Consider that this is the one that God says I have chosen to give my authority to minister on behalf of the people to me, the one whom I am speaking to, the one whom I am bringing into the most holy place, the one who's going to represent me to the people and the people to me. This is my high priest, the one in whom I give proof of resurrection. Aharon's rod. That which is dead is alive. Aharon's rod, we have here the stick of something that was dead, and it produced life. Produced life and fruit. Not just that it came to life and had the flowers, but it had the flowers and it had the fruit as well. The proof that Aharon was chosen is because of resurrection. There's a life that was dead but is now alive that is bearing fruit. Where else do we see this, guys? We see this in Romans 11 and in Ezekiel 37, right? Romans 11, 17 to 24. I'm not going to go through, I'm not going to read the whole thing there. But in Romans 11, it talks about being grafted in. So as you're grafted in, well, what does this mean? You know, if you cut a tree, an olive tree, you cut branches off, they can sit there for years. Even looks like it's dead. They could be grafted back in and come to life. Amazing. So that which was dead can be grafted back in and brought back into life. And that's what he's saying here. So branches were broken up. Be careful because the root supports you. You don't support the root. So we're grafted into this tree that's to give life in it. Ezekiel? Well, Ezekiel 37, we talk about the two sticks, right? But before you can talk about the two sticks, you have to talk about the dry bones. It's in the same place. There was one right then the other. And they both testify of the same thing. The vision, it's not just two completely separate visions. They testify of the same thing happening. We have Ezekiel 37, the valley of the dry bones. The word for bones is etzem, by the way. The word for a stick or tree is etz. Very similar, aren't they? Etzem, etz, stick, bones. So we have here again this other connection that's being given here of the dry bones. What was it when you read about the dry bones, and we read all through the prophet of Ezekiel over and time again, he says that I will bring you out of your graves and bring you back to life and bring you back to the land. Ezekiel's talking about resurrection. He's talking about the valley of dry bones. The whole valley of dry bones is all these dry bones being brought up back to life as they gather in together and the Spirit breathing life back into them. But they're gathered from wherever they are all over the place. They're gathered back in to be one people. One people. One God. All Israel gathered. It's the same thing with the sticks. Look. So the prophecy that's given here of the two sticks was given directly after the vision of the valley of dry bones. The dry bones that came together and came to life are, Scripture says, the whole house of Israel. The two sticks have names written on them as well. So the bones, we already know, the names were not written on them, but we know that the bones are the whole house of Israel, right? But then the sticks, what's written on them? On the one stick, Yehuda, Belivnei Israel Havro. So we have for Judah and the sons of Israel joined with him. There's actually two people that are mentioned here. We have Judah and those who join with Judah. So we have all of that because that's what the word Havro or Havra, that's what it means to join with. And then we have for Yosef, LeYosef, Yetz Ephraim. So for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, the Kol Bet Israel Havro. So we have for Joseph the stick of Ephraim, or you could even say the bones, so to speak, that way, of Ephraim, all the house of Israel. Notice the difference. For Judah and the sons of Israel, for Ephraim, the house of Israel. But the point of all this together is all those joined with him. And then what's the deal with the two sticks? That they're not to remain two. That they are to be two sticks, but then it says that you, son of man, take them and it says bring them together, but it doesn't literally mean join them together. It literally means bring them close to one another. Then God says, I will join them together. What's our job in that? Our responsibility is not to make the sticks be one. Our responsibility in that is to be able to be willing to come close enough where God can make us. Now that's a little bit easier. That's just a matter of surrender. Not a matter of me trying to make anybody do anything other than myself. I surrender my heart. And as God says, that people over there, that's your brother. Go join with them. Go be a part of what they're doing. So that's what's happening here. So the two sticks that are joining together, they're coming together, can also be viewed as grafting together in new life. that the two become one. That doesn't happen if something's dead. It only happens if something is alive and living and joins together. What was the purpose of the rods? Purpose of Aaron's rod? What was the purpose of these rods that were being done here? To bring the people together and to bring them in order. It says it's to remind the people not to rebel and pursue their own desires. Because it says when God says, so take the stick that's given for Aaron and show it to the people and then put it back before the presence of the Lord, so that when the people start grumbling and complaining and doing these things, go get the rod. And notice he doesn't say, go get the rod and use it on them. He says, go get the rod and show it to them, so that it reminds them of what's going to happen if they keep grumbling and complaining and arguing. They're going to die. But if we work together in a place of unity, then it'll continue to bring the life that Yahweh desires for us. See? Number 17:10, Yahweh says to Moshe, put Aaron's stick back in the front of the covenant box. It is to be kept as a warning to the rebel Israelites that they will die unless their complaining stops. How many of us as parents have said the same to our kids? Or something similar. This complaining is going to stop now. How many of your kids immediately stop complaining and just all of a sudden they're so cheerful? Doesn't work that way, does it? See? And we're no different. We're no different. Yahweh's saying the way you're choosing for your heart and mind and your mouth to act right now isn't good. Stop before you say or do something that it's going to be too late. Change your focus. And remember, Yahweh has a path. Okay? All right. Philippians 2:13-15. It says, so it is God who is producing in you both the desire and the ability to do what pleases Him. The desire and the ability. Not just the want, but the able. Right? Okay. Do everything how? Did we skip that one? Do what you enjoy without complaining and grumbling. Right? Is that what it says? It says do what? Everything. Oh boy. How many of y'all wore your steel toe boots today? I don't know what a pair anymore. Do everything without complaining and arguing. Why? So that you will be blameless and innocent. God's children without any faults. Among a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you shine like stars in the world. God has called you to a higher plan. He called you to shine like stars in the world that is dark. Be a light for those around you. We do that. You ever notice? I mean, you heard, you're the only Bible that some people's going to see. What a cliche, but you know what? It's true. Absolutely true. People will watch you and they'll judge the God you serve by you. That's wrong, but it's true. So we need to make sure that we are representing well the one that we serve. Aaron was a watchman, wasn't he? Was he not? It was also the job of the Levites to protect the sancta, to protect the holy things, that nothing would encroach upon it. Okay? This was for the benefit of the holy place and the benefit of the people as well. Because if the people had ill intent and they came towards the tabernacle, came towards that altar, we know what happened to Korah and the 250 men, right? But this was the job of the Levites to prevent that from happening. Okay? So if people came in that manner, they were to stop them before they got that far. Aaron was a watchman. The rod he used was a reminder to all of the people. Again, like I said, not to use it on the people, but to be a reminder who was chosen to protect them spiritually. Hebrews 13:17 says, obey them who have rule over you and submit yourselves, that they watch out your souls just as they must give an account, that they may do it with joy and not with grief, for that is unprofitable for you. I hate the fact that I have to kind of put some kind of preface to this, but just because there have been, and you got to admit there have been many abuses of authority and different things. It's true, there have been. You know what? It still doesn't change what God said. It doesn't change the fact that God said, I will give you shepherds after my own heart. Notice he never says, I'm going to give you perfect people. There aren't any. He says, I'm going to give you shepherds after my own heart. David was a man after God's own heart. Is he perfect? No. But he was quick to repent when it was brought to his attention. His heart was to lead the people in the things that God desired. And so that's what we're talking about here. So it's not a matter of being abused, and I'm not condoning that at all. Okay? So I'm not telling you if you're in a situation where that is the case to stay there. I'm not telling you that. What I am saying is, if you are upset with leadership, make sure you have good reason. It's not just you just don't like what they're saying, because that offense can come in pretty, and that can lead you out of where you're supposed to be. Sometimes we get offended when we just don't want to change. We're all supposed to. Into pictures of his image to be his holy, his shadow, right? Okay. Number 17:10. But Yahweh says to Moshe, put Aaron's stick back in front of the covenant box. And this be kept as a warning that they will die unless the complaining stops. Go back to Numbers 20, and what do we see? Well, Yahweh spoke unto Moses, and he says, take the rod and gather the assembly together, you and Aaron your brother, and speak to the rock. Remember this? Take the rod. The people are saying we need water. So he says, go get the rod. What was the purpose of the rod? To remind the people, stop complaining, listen to God. Let's follow what he says here, right? So they're complaining. What does he do? Go get the rod to remind them. And go stand there in front of the rock and then speak to the rock before their eyes, and the rock will give water, and you will bring them water and out of the rock. So you will give the congregation and all their beasts, all their animals, drink. Okay, verse 9. So Moses took the rod from before the Lord as he commanded him, and Moses and Aaron gathered the congregation together before the rock, and he said to them, hear now, you rebels. Why would he say that? Well, again, remember what we said when they went and got the rod, it says to remind the rebellious Israelites to stop rebelling, right? So Moses stands in front of all the people, and he says, hear now, you rebels, right? What does he do? He says, now must we fetch you water out of this rock? And Moses lifted up his hand, and with the rod he... Yeah. Oh, no. He hit the rock. Not once. Water came out. The congregation drank, and their beasts also. Interesting. Moses, hear now, you rebels. Must we bring you water from this rock? As he rebels against God himself. And I mean, even Moshe wasn't perfect either. His anger got the best of him. Things were there, and he mishandled that. It was a holy thing that God says it was before the Lord. And he took it. He was supposed to speak to the rock. He didn't. He hit the rock. But in God's goodness, he still gave water. But he held Moses accountable. And Moses would not be able to enter into the land because of this incident right here. You know what I mean? So God was still good. He was still gracious. He still brought the people in the land. He still gave them the water. Moses couldn't lead them in because what happened? What was the deal with the rod? What was the deal with the branch? To produce fruit. To produce fruit. We're already start seeing some of these examples regarding the rod or the branch in relationship to Yeshua. Is he not called Samach, the branch? Right? Look at this. Isaiah 11, 1 and 2. A shoot, a branch, will come forth out of the stem of Jesse, and the branch will bear fruit out of his roots. The Ruach of Adonai will rest upon him. Spirit of wisdom and insight, spirit of counsel and might, spirit of knowledge and the fear of Yahweh. This is the sevenfold spirits of Yahweh that is given on Yeshua. So he is imparted. These seven spirits are in the person of Yeshua that is here, which is the branch, which we also see Revelation, the sevenfold spirits in front of the throne as well. John 15, 1 through 7. Yeshua says, I am the vine. My Father is the husbandman. What's another word for vine? The branch would be the same. Here we have. Every branch in me that bears not fruit, he takes away. Every branch that bears fruit, he purges, he prunes it, so that there will be more fruit. Now you are clean through the word which I have spoken to you. Verse 4. Abide in me, I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine, nor can you except you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. He that abides in me and I in him, the same brings forth fruit, for without me you can do nothing. If a man abides not in me, He is cast forth as a branch and is withered, and men gather them and cast them into the fire, and they are burned. But if you abide in me, what happens? My words abide in you. Ask what you will, and it shall be done to you. As we're seeking the heart of the Father, what we desire becomes what He desires. The things that He wants is what we want. So anything that we ask is going to line up with what God wants anyway, because that's where our heart is. Right? Jeremiah 1, 9-12. So Adonai put out his hand, he touched my mouth, and Adonai says to me, there I have put my words in your mouth. Where else have we seen this? Moses. I put my words in your mouth, and you give the words to Aaron. Aaron will speak, right? Where else do we see Isaiah 6? I'm a man of unclean lips, and he says he takes the coal and purges his lips, and he tells him what to say, what to speak. So here Jeremiah says, I am putting my words in your mouth. Today I have placed you over nations and kingdoms to uproot and to tear down, to destroy and to demolish, to build and to plant. What is that? But that's the authority of the word. It's not your authority. The authority of the word that God is sending. You're acting on his authority, not yours. Okay? Same thing that Yeshua said. The things that I do because the Father sent me. Right? Yeshua was doing what he was sent to do. The word of Adonai came to me, saying, Jeremiah, what do you see? And he said, I see a branch from an almond tree. God said, Adonai says, you've seen well, because I am watching to fulfill my word. That makes no sense. What do you see? I see an almond tree. You've seen well. That's right. It's what you see, because I'm watching to do my word. What in the world does an almond tree have to do with watching anything? It's interesting. In the Hebrew, it's the same words, different variations, but it's the same word. He says, what do you see? I see a branch from an almond tree. Shaked. Shaked. He says, I am watching Shoked to fulfill my word. See, the branch of an almond tree, watching, it's the same word. There's a play on here. So when he saw the almond tree, the branches of the almond tree, it's a reminder that God is doing something. You could even take that back to Aaron's rod. It was an almond branch. What is the reminder? God is doing something. He is choosing a high priest to minister for him and to minister to us and to be an example and representation, for us to Yahweh and Yahweh to us. And God is doing something there. He says, here, seen well, because I'm about to do something. The fruit that's produced by Aaron's rod was almonds, shaked, from the almond tree. And again, shakad means to be alert, to be sleepless, to look out, to hasten something, to do something quickly. So again, it's the same word that's being used here. Fruit that was done. God was showing the people, not just the one that he chose, but he's saying that I'm doing this quickly, and I'm showing he is a lookout. He is a watchman. He is the one who's to be alert for me. Well, Proverbs 8:32-34. How happy is the person who shema, who listens to me. And it says, who watches daily at my gates and waits outside my doors. Who watches, shaked. The word there is shaked. So happy is a person who hears me, who hears and watches, shaked, daily at the gates and waits outside my doors. Lishmor mezuzot petachai. So again, who waits at the doors, at the mezuzah, and shemar, guards and protects. So we have here again, you could say, a picture of the Levites, picture of Aaron as well. One who listens for the voice of God and is a watchman right there by the doors and the gates of his presence. The job of the priesthood. So it's guarding the holy things. How about this? Yahweh was showing his people discipline at this point. Okay? When he was choosing Aaron and the rod, he was disciplining his people and saying, this is the one that I've chose. Stop with the complaining and the rebelling. This was correction. Okay? This was discipline, right? So what's happening here? Discipline, I want to point this out, and I'm going to say it here because this is very counterculture. Discipline is not bad. Discipline is not wrong. Lack of discipline is a curse. Look in here. Zechariah 5:3. Zechariah 5:3 says, so then he said to me, This is the curse that goes over the face of the whole earth. So he's about to say what a curse. There's a curse that's going around the face of the whole earth. This is a curse, right? What is it? Everyone that steals will be cut off on this side according to it, and everyone that swears shall be cut off on that side according to it. So here's a curse. Everyone who steals and everyone who swears will be cut off. Does that sound like a curse to you? It doesn't sound like a curse to me. What's really going on here? Take a look at it. The word for curse is Allah. It's curse, cursing, oath, or swearing. Cut off, it's given here, the word that's used for cut off is nakah, which means, again, to cleanse or to cut off, but also means to be left unpunished. So what we could be saying is this: the guilty will be unpunished. The guilty will continue to go in the earth without any discipline and without any correction, and it's just going to be chaos. That sound like a curse? Yes. Look, Deuteronomy 8, 5, and 6. Think deeply about it. Adonai was disciplining you just as a man disciplines his child. So obey the mitzvot of Adonai your God, living as he directs and fearing him. Hebrews 12:6 says Adonai disciplines those he loves, and he whips everyone he accepts as a son. We want to be sons of Yah? Don't hate when Yahweh disciplines. Because there are times, you ever notice discipline can be something very simple, like don't do that. That's discipline. Okay? If the child listens, that's all the discipline that's needed. How many of you have had children who don't sin that easily? Guess what? Neither do we as adults. So there are times that Yahweh says, hey, don't do that. We're like, this? Yeah, that. Don't do it. I just did this. Stop doing that. But I like that. Yahweh disciplines. We live in a society today where when someone is told no or told something needs to change or something needs corrected, it's translated as hate. Not hate, show holiness. Not hate to show correction. Show in the heart of the Father. Keep you on the path. Proverbs 29:15. The rod and rebuke give wisdom, but the child left to himself brings shame on his mother. Can I share a little advice for you guys? A 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old left to themselves will destroy themselves. Hey, if I take this knife and I stick it in the socket, what's it going to do? They have to have boundaries and discipline. And then the older they get, those things change because they grow with you. But it all starts with, boundaries and discipline. We need that. Again, we said Hebrews 12:6. Adonai disciplines those he loves. Hebrews 12:10. For they disciplined us only for a short time and only the best they could, but he disciplines us in a way that provides genuine benefit and enables us to share in his holiness. Now, all discipline, while it is happening, what's it say? Does seem painful. How many of you guys enjoy when Yahweh disciplines you? Ow, that felt great. No, when discipline happens, it is painful in the moment, right? But for those who have been trained by it, it later produces peaceful fruit, which is righteousness. Psalm 15, 1 and 2. Psalm of David. Yahweh, who will abide in your tabernacle? Who will dwell in your holy hill? He that walks uprightly, works righteousness, speaks the truth in his heart. How do we get there? Training, discernment, discipline. How does the picture of Aaron's rod point towards Yeshua? We'll end with this. 1, it shows that the one that was chosen to intercede for Israel and offer incense was the high priest. It wasn't anyone from any of the other tribes. It was the high priest that was chosen. He is the one who will intercede for Israel. He is the one that will offer incense before Yahweh. Guys, isn't Yeshua our high priest? He will be the one to shown by the sticks, the people, the bones coming back to life and gathering the people together into a place of unity. Did not Yeshua say, I have come for the lost sheep of the house of Israel? Did not Caiaphas say of Yeshua that it is better for the nation that one man die for that nation, but not just that nation only, but for all of Israel that have been scattered abroad? It is expedient that one man should die for that? Speaking again of Yeshua gathering all people and gathering all the nations and gathering all those to come back to him. Of all the scriptures that say when he is lifted up, that he will gather all people to him. Just as it says that Moshe lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, the Son of Man will be lifted up. Right before he says, for God so loved the world. We need to back up a couple and read the context. We're talking about Yahweh showing us that when we see the ultimate sign, that sign, Yeshua, when we see that sign is to bring us all back to him. And then Yeshua resurrected. He also said he was sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Yeshua says, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he was dead, yet he will live. He is the one that was resurrected. He is the one that produced fruit. He is the one that produced the blossoms. And so we all come to him and gather together in him as he points us to the way that is life everlasting. Amen? Amen. All right, let's all stand. Numbers chapter 6. Yahweh told Moshe and Aharon, when you bless my children, I will place my name upon them, and I will give them peace. And as he said, when you bless them, you shall bless them like this.